Good evening. I'd like to welcome everyone to this meeting on March 14th, our regularly scheduled meeting.
April.
Did I say March? Yeah. Oh, sorry, April. Would everyone please join us for the flag salute? Salute and pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, I'll report out on a closed session. Information was exchanged, no action was taken. We'll move on to item 3, any public comment for items not on this agenda. You're welcome to step up to the podium and let your voice be heard. Anything not on this agenda?
What press?
Green. Press it so it's green. See the green button?
Want to start over?
I haven't started the minutes.
Okay.
No, there you go.
Good evening, board members. My name's Kelly
Sorry,
Bergier.
Kelly, do you mind adjusting the microphone so?
Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. My intention is to bring attention to the academic needs of our middle school students and to encourage thoughtful, solution-focused discussions about how we can better support them. I care deeply about our students, our school community, and believe it's necessary to strengthen the learning for all. In case I run short on time, I want to make sure that you know, please, I'm not here to place blame. I'm here to advocate for our students and to invite you again to a conversation and also to please come observe my class at the middle school. Spend time with me over the next remaining 8 weeks of the school year. If you only have 30 minutes in your day, come see what we're doing in science anytime. Then you can honestly ask yourselves, is the district and our current systems truly supporting academic growth and rigor? Or are gaps in the system unintentionally lowering expectations? With such a small school district, are we working intentionally and collaboratively to effectively serve our students? Or is the system functioning as a top-down system resulting in directives rather than collaboration and shared solutions? Now, for some reflection and additional context to the last school board meeting. When board members asked clarifying questions about D's and F's and percentages at the middle school administrator's presentation, Ms. Rigby stated, look at the data. You have the numbers. It's the same students in science that are in language arts. The numbers do reflect these are the same students. However, not all of the context is clearly represented. Mr. Schaefer was correct to question the data and transparency of those numbers because, in fact, the majority of D's and F's are among our SPED and EL students that are disproportionately grouped among sections and teachers. Also, when D and F data is shared from the district by department and grade level, it does not include any students that are enrolled in plus classes for ELA and math, which would significantly lower the percentages. Catch my breath. I'd also like to acknowledge the disparaging comments from the presentation by administrators from the middle school. On average, stating there are approximately only 5 students per class with high needs like EL and SPED. I wish this was the case, but the average are not the reality in classrooms. In practice, certain classes have large clusters of students with high academic needs, specifically EL and SPED. In addition, there's a high number of students entering that grade level, reading below or far below grade level. So it was disappointing to see leadership place blame on one teacher saying they're not engaging the students. This approach is selectively demonizing one person and does not provide a full context and all of the other variables related to student achievement. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any other public comment for items not on this agenda?
After the misrepresentation misrepresentations made at the March 10th board meeting, the CMS Math Department is compelled to accurately report on the push-in model at CMS. Our administrators did not describe the actual push-in model we are using at CMS. Rather, they described a co-teach model, which we are not using. Mrs. Pursoon, Haynes, and Rigby claim that there's a special education teacher in each CMS math class, but they did not share that the special education teacher is only there for 15 minutes 3 times per week. Special education students receive an average of 240 minutes of general education math each week, but a special education teacher is only present for 45 of those minutes. In other words, a special education student who may have a specific learning disability in math only receives direct special education support for less than 20% of those weekly math minutes. You are also told incorrectly that the special education teachers are even, quote, able to help general education students who might need a little bit of support. This is inaccurate. During the weekly 45 minutes that a special education teacher is in a general education class, that teacher's attention is routinely divided by at least 3 to 5 special education students. There's not even enough time to cover the special education students' needs, let alone the needs of general ed students. Admin's statements that the push-in model reflects the, quote, best of both worlds are also untrue. Admin's statements that the push-in model means all students are getting 2 teachers in the same environment are also untrue. CUSD has reduced its investment in special education students by replacing 240 minutes of specialized academic math instruction with 45 minutes of special education assistance. Again, a special education teacher shows up for 15 minutes a day, 3 times a week, to assist their students for less than 20% of their weekly math minutes. And as a result, for many, their learning continues to decline, and subsequently, so has their self-confidence, self-efficacy, and academic resilience. The erosion of the special education math program is not adequately serving our special education students and families. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, CUSD board members. My name is Jessica Gala. I teach 6th grade ELA and history.
I'm Christina Pena. I'm the Spanish department chair, and I also teach Spanish along with Spanish language arts for dual enrollment students.
We are here today to represent the CMS Language Arts Department. We wish to share with you and the community the letter which we sent to the board members on March 18th in an effort to encourage continued collaboration between us all.
The letter reads, Dear CUSD board members, after the comments made at the previous March board meeting by our colleagues, we feel the need to add our voices to the conversation and share with you all our thoughts and concerns as a department.
We support Kelly Vigier's comments on the board meeting on March 10th, 2026, and we would like to add that we support her comments here today and all the comments made by our colleagues at CMS. On March 10th, Kelly Vigier succinctly shared facts about CMS and why our students are faltering when looking at the numbers of D's and F's as presented. The absence of support for our most vulnerable populations is an issue that has been ongoing and systemic. Additionally, we feel that a shift in this year's policies have incurred a drastic downward trajectory in student progress, including the following.
Reduced support for students in EL and SPED programs.
Lack of academic intervention embedded effectively throughout the school day.
Chronic absenteeism.
D-grade minimum expectations for promotion ceremony.
Overall school culture.
We would also like to note that our after-school tutoring program is running out of grant funding, which would strip our students who have D's and F's of additional support. We all wish to make CMS the best place it can be, and we hope we can be collaborative partners together in making this happen. Our department welcomes the opportunity to have a thoughtful discussion about ways we can strengthen our academic supports and better address the student needs, questions, and concerns that are emerging in our classrooms. We invite you to come and visit our classrooms and discuss with us in person solutions to the issues that have been addressed.
Along with the list of concerns my language arts colleagues have shared, as the Spanish department chair, I'm also compelled to mention the recently instated practice of exiting students from the dual enrollment program who have received D's or F's in their dual enrollment courses. These bilingual students received letters in the previous month stating that they would be exited from the program at the end of the school year if they cannot raise their grades to a C or above. This practice undermines previously stated CUSD goals to provide a high-quality DLI program for students in grades K through 12, regardless of their linguistic or home background. This elective program serves students whose families have chosen this path for them and want to see them succeed in the entire program. This weakens both the bonds that these groups have formed since their classes together in kindergarten and the hard work that all of the CUSD staff has put into making DLI a success. Again, I invite you to come visit us at Carp Middle and work with us on productive solutions to these and other concerns presented by our colleagues. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you.
Good evening. Chris Mastrovito. I'm here not representing cause secretary, but as a teacher at the middle school, 8th grade, 7th grade middle school. As a teacher at the middle school, I thought I would try to shed a little bit more light on this issue regarding grades that was brought up, those alarming numbers that brought up last time. And I want to try to point out that in the presentation first, that the data from the progress grades were used to make a point about the disparities between teachers with respect to their students' grades. And just want to remind everyone here that those grades are by definition a measure of a grade in progress. They are transient in nature, and they do not reflect in themselves the total measure of learning. In most cases, they're a snapshot of a moment in time in which students are still catching up toward the semester grade. But since we are talking about D's and F's as a key metric in how the students are doing, I'd like to share anecdotally the percentage of students earning D's and F's in my 8th grade classes at semester 1 who are also with IEPs and ELA 1. And this is what I believe Mr. Schaefer had expressed wanting to learn more about after those alarming numbers were presented. And I thank you for asking those important questions. So please allow me to share my observations, and without sharing grades or personal data on any student, I think it's helpful to see this. So of the D's and F marks on semester 1 grades, in one period, 2 out of 4 of those are from students with special needs, so half. In another period, 3 out of 5 of the D and F marks on semester 1 were from students with special needs, so 60%. And another period, 4 out of 4 students earning D and F marks semester 1, 100% were either students with special needs or ELD 1. And I share these at the risk of putting myself in the crosshairs of those who would assume that these outcomes are completely preventable, right, by the classroom teacher if the correct methods are used, the correct instruction is applied. And I'm here to tell you that despite all the differentiation, the flexible grouping, the modifications to assignments, the changes made to the way students receive help at the middle school, it only goes so far. I believe the understanding which was reached by some here was that the disparities in outcomes for the students are not the result of systemic changes, but are instead due to inconsistencies between certain teachers. And I think a lot of us felt really kind of dragged through the mud on that one. But I'd like you all to see and acknowledge that even in departments such as science, which were not singled out as problematic because they have relatively low DNF rates, the students suffering the most this year are most certainly the students with special needs and language learners. Thank you.
Good evening, members of the board, Superintendent Rigby. My name is John Fowler. I teach history and AVID at the middle school. Last time I spoke to you, January 2025, I commended our school administrators, Dr. Passoon and Mr. Anderson, for helping to establish a more calm and focused school climate where teachers were supported. When our current school year commenced in August, I couldn't but hope that we would focus on the academic piece, right? Fine-tune better ways, even better ways to help support students. Take a step back for a moment. Middle school is a doozy, right? Rapid development, neural connections reorganizing, leaving students hypersensitive to like bullying, peer pressure, social rejection, right? The need to fit in is far more important than schoolwork, right? If you fit in, then cool, man, focus. But if you're not, it's very difficult for students to navigate and thread that needle, right? Students questioning, who am I? They're dealing with significant changes in their body. They're testing boundaries. All this in the face of transitioning from one teacher to multiple teachers. Higher workloads, more complex subject matter, requiring a real need for the kinds of organizational skills that they're still developing. Now, our so-called push-in model, it may be helping some students. These things are difficult to measure, and we kind of go back and forth about the data. I wasn't trained in reading the data, to tell you the truth. We all seem to be coming with our different arguments about it. It would be great to hear each other out. But with that being said, these things are difficult to measure. We are in the business of planting seeds that take time to wake up, let alone germinate and grow. But from my optic, this model is not serving many students well, right? Whether by grades, engagement, a quick conversation with the student. We are falling short. I hope this conversation could help move things forward. I think I speak on behalf of my colleagues when I say we're not here to battle a bunch of adults, but to help students navigate these tough middle years. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Alrighty, thank you. On March 10th, 2026, Principal Pursoon provided a PowerPoint presentation on Carpinteria Middle School. In a nutshell, the presentation attempted to pass responsibility for CMS's rapidly declining student achievement from the shoulders of those administrators most responsible for the influential programmatic decisions to the teachers struggling to maintain effective learning environments in the chaotic aftermath of those administrative decisions. While Principal Pursoon attempted to shame and blame faculty based on an incomplete and often factually incorrect data, the most meaningful and clearly available data was missing. Unfortunately, the district did not agendize another CMS presentation this evening, even after they recognized that Ms. Pursoon's presentation did not clarify the reasons for sustained reductions in academic achievement. By failing to re-examine this matter, senior admin and board officials will allow to stand the misinformation contained in both the presentation and the follow-up statements made by Superintendent Rigby, SPED Director Haynes, and Ms. Pursoon. Worse, failing to re-examine this presentation does little to improve the current situation. Unfortunately, Principal Pursoon has yet to internalize any of the feedback the board politely offered on March 10th. Instead, she continues to double down on the same behavior and misinterpretations baked into her inaccurate and increasingly irrelevant presentation, going so far as to continue to suggest publicly and in staff communications that CMS faculty refuse to differentiate their instruction, that the problem can be solved by simply building rapport with students, that admin is now canceling students' detentions because admin alleges such routine behavioral consequences are ineffective methods for reorienting students, that many faculty don't want SPED 504 or ELL students in their classrooms, and that grade manipulation will resolve our learning problems. Ms. Pursoon alleges that all are to blame for significant reductions in student achievement, not admin's arbitrary and unilateral programmatic decisions relating to the push-in model. In response to the feedback Ms. Pursoon received on March 10th, she instead chose to continue her myth-building exercise blaming faculty and support staff for the impact of CMS and CUSD's poverty of leadership. Elected employee leadership wants to thank the many CMS faculty who have sacrificed time to provide the community and yourselves more accurate data this evening. Throughout March and early April, CMS faculty have been sharing relevant data with district admin and our board officials, to include emails, face-to-face conversations, letters to the board, and these public comments shared this evening. Thank you. And thank you all. Mr. Delgado will translate into Spanish. Thank you.
Translation. El 10 de marzo la directora Persun dio una presentación de la secundaria. En corto, trató de pasar la responsabilidad de la administración a los maestros respecto al bajo rendimiento académico de los estudiantes. Los maestros hacen su mayor esfuerzo para mantener un aprendizaje efectivo en el caos, incertidumbre de las decisiones administrativas. La directora Persun trató de culpar a los maestros basada en datos incompletos. Desafortunadamente, la administración no agendó otra presentación de la directora, pese a que reconocieron que la directora Persun no clarificó las razones del bajo rendimiento de los estudiantes. Esto no ayuda a los estudiantes y lo peor, no revisar el problema hace poco para mejorar la situación. Para empeorar la situación, la directora no ha internalizado nada de los análisis del Consejo de Educación del 10 de marzo y sigue el mismo comportamiento con información académica errónea. Sigue culpando a los maestros y asistentes. El líder electo de los empleados agradece a la facultad de la secundaria que han sacrificado mucho tiempo para proveer a la comunidad más información correcta. En marzo y abril, los maestros han estado compartiendo esta información con la administración, con el Consejo de Educación, con correos electrónicos, cartas y con comentarios esta tarde. Now I would like to proceed with my own public comment. The middle school has the resources, has the dual language immersion program, well established, yet during the last 2 years, academic achievement is down on 6th grade, 7th, and 8th grade. Let me read you these NFs provided to the community on March 10th. And here they are, the results, these NFs. First semester, 6th grade, these NFs, 2025-2026, 26%, 7th grade, 21%, 8th grade, 24%. Second semester, 6th grade, 24%. 24 and 20, this is for 24 and 25, the ones that I read, 25 and 26, current ones. 2024, 2025, 6th grade, 24%, 7th of F, D's and F's. 7th grade, 21%, 8th grade, 18%. Common sense tells you that teachers and support staff are not to blame. Who is responsible? The administration that sets up the programs when they're wrong. Teachers just follow the instruction. Diana Rigby is the face of the district. Persun is the principal. Special education students and English learners are in regular classes now, sometimes up to 50% of a class, not 3 as officially said. I applaud teachers for their effort and sacrifice. And so what's behind that these NFs? This could be the system implemented by administration. Teachers, they are following instructions. So I think that as a former board member, as a former teacher, I think that we all have to be involved in improving these results. You as board members, you as a superintendent, teachers who are here today, I myself represented the community. I think that we should all work together. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, seeing no more of a public comment. Move on to item 4, the approval of the minutes of our last meeting. Could I get a motion?
I'll move to approve.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Any public comment on minutes of our last meeting?
Okay, so let's try to clean the damage from the last meeting. Let the minutes of March 10th clarify that the administrator is most responsible for the poorly vetted and hastily implemented push-in project, or push-in program, I should say, used the CMS presentation at minute 3550 to blame teachers for the second year of declining academic achievement under Principal Pursoon. Let the record show employees and their elected representatives appreciate the engagement and discussion of our board members who received a variety of inaccurate and misleading responses from the administrators present on March 10th. At hour 1:01, Mr. Bridgeford asked if SPED teachers are supporting all classes. Ms. Rigby said only math and language arts, but failed to share SPED teachers are only provide support for 15 minutes per class 3 times a week, less than 20% of the support these students got last year. At hour 1:24:40, Mr. Smith asked whether SPED students are expected to do only 50% of the coursework in all their classes. Ms. Pursoon responded shockingly, yes, which is not true. There is no universal expectation that SPED students only complete 50% of their coursework. At hour 1:18:15, Ms. Diamond stated it was not appropriate for Ms. Pursoon to call out teachers in her presentation, which is especially true when considering the data Ms. Pursoon included, what was at best grossly incomplete, highly manipulated, and intended to professionally threaten teachers brave enough to record the D's and F's their students earn. At hour 1:06, Mr. Schaefer asked which students are earning the lion's share of D's and F's. Admin failed to share that many of the same students are receiving D's and F's across all content areas, the highest percentage being SPED students pushed into general ed classrooms. That said, let the minutes show that D's and F's do not adequately explain why student achievement is declining. D's and F's are highly susceptible to administrative manipulation. They neither explain what is and isn't working with the push-in model, nor do they clarify the value of the co-teach model or the value of last year's specialized academic support classes. Let the minutes show that D's and F's correlate more with the concentration of at-risk students assigned to a given teacher than a teacher's performance. For example, where admin stated that there is an average of 3 SPED or ELL students in a class, some classes have 55 to 65% SPED and EL students, while others may have none. Let the record show that Mr. Schaefer is correct to question CMS's warped view of equity. We do students a disservice when we remove resources and lower expectations in the name of equity, simply because some come to us with less resources and capacity. Instead, shouldn't we strategically support those who need the most support while encouraging all students to use every available resource they have to pursue academic excellence and their highest possible achievement? Let the minutes show that throughout the discussions pertaining to declining achievement,
Thank you.
none of you asked
Thank you.
to meet with
Thank
these
you.
people. None of you.
Thank
And
you.
you still haven't. Thank you.
Thank you.
Translation of Union President's approval of the minutes, comments. Okay. Que los minutos muestren que en la junta pasada, al minuto 35:50 se culpa a los maestros del bajo rendimiento académico bajo la dirección de Pursoon y que el apoyo dentro del aula se implementó apresuradamente. Que el récord muestre que los empleados y representantes electos aprecian la interacción de los miembros del Consejo de Educación que recibieron respuestas equivocadas el 10 de marzo. Que el récord muestre que al minuto 1:01 el señor Richford preguntó si los maestros de educación especial apoyaban en todas las clases. La superintendente Rigby dijo que solamente en matemáticas y en lenguaje de artes, pero no mencionó que los maestros apoyan solo 15 minutos por clase 3 veces a la semana. Al minuto 1 minuto 24 minutos con 40 segundos, el señor Smith preguntó si los estudiantes de educación especial completaban solamente el 50% del trabajo académico. Presun dijo que sí, lo cual no es verdad. Al minuto, 1 minuto con 18 minutos y 15 segundos, Ms. Diamond dijo que no era apropiado para Presun culpar a los maestros, lo cual es verdad, porque las estadísticas son incompletas y manipuladas. Que el récord muestre que las DCFs no explican del por qué el rendimiento es bajo, tampoco explican lo que funciona y no del programa inclusivo del modelo. Algunas clases tienen del 55 al 65% de estudiantes de educación especial y de estudiantes que están aprendiendo inglés. Que los minutos muestren que ni la administración ni el Consejo de Educación se han acercado a la facultad de la secundaria que trabaja directamente con los estudiantes. Gracias.
Okay, I have a second and a motion. All in favor of approving the minutes?
Aye.
All right, move on to the approval of the agenda and consent agenda. Any public comment on the agenda and consent agenda?
Alrighty, thank you. So elected union leadership asked the board to support the following items contained in this evening's consent agenda, items 1, 3, 4, 6, 7, and 9. Beyond those items, elected employee leadership is compelled to remind the district that the Brown Act is designed to prevent the advancement of public business without transparency. This evening, we discourage the district from approving consent agenda item number 5, which is associated with the contract with Cox Business Services. Please correct us if we're wrong, but we don't believe this item was ever brought before the board and the community for previous consideration. Although item 5 contains a comparatively small monetary investment, that alone does not justify the district's decision to engage in yet another Brown Act violation. The practice of ramming through items that have not been properly presented to the public to be approved with a single up or down vote obscures debate and prevents dissenting viewpoints and concerns from being placed on the public record. And make no mistake, CUSD's consent agendas often contain items of significant cost, the financial impact of which have greatly impacted available monies for district students and programs. The continued misuse of the consent agenda serves to grease the wheels for occasions like those when the consent agenda contains items district officials would prefer to ram through without public oversight. Therefore, it's important that all consent agenda items receive the full measure of scrutiny entitled, not only because it's legally required, but because consistent practices prevent costly errors. Interestingly, elected employee leadership couldn't help but notice that the district again dismissed our requests for increased transparency as it pertains to employee payroll costs. On March 10th, we asked that CUSD not only share payroll costs for certificated and classified employees, which has been the routine on the consent agenda, but to additionally share specific payroll costs associated with district administrative payroll. This month, the district not only rejected that request, but went so far as to conceal all employee payroll costs. Union leadership asked why the regular March payroll of 2026 was not included on this consent agenda at all. We hope you do too. And why the district is so reluctant to draw attention to the inordinate expenses associated with CUSD's administrative payroll costs, which have ballooned under Superintendent Rigby. All the while, costs associated with employees working directly with students have continued to become an increasingly smaller portion of CUSD's budget, a detail exposed in the district's most recent audit, which confirmed that CUSD violated Ed Code yet again by underinvesting the required portion of our budget in teacher and support staff salaries. The district was approximately $3.5 million short in 23-24, and $2.5 million short in 24-25. Both of those clear Ed Code violations. Surprise, there was no similar violation, however, in underinvestment or shortages when it came to CUSD's administrative costs, which you continue to hide. Thank you.
Okay, can I get a motion to approve the agenda and consent agenda?
I'll motion to approve.
I'll second.
All right, any discussion? It's a roll call.
Jeanette,
Aye.
Andy,
Aye.
Aaron,
Aye.
and I am I.
All right, thank you. All righty, we will now move on to a very exciting presentation. What's that?
Public comment?
Oh, public comment. Oh, I'm sorry. Public comment on item E. Any public comment on item E?
Thanks to Escobedo Bustamante family for their patience.
Good evening. I'm here to speak on behalf of union leadership and union members that are compelled to notice in the presentation coming. We were surprised to notice that the push-in model is not going to be mentioned in the PowerPoint. This is the special education program presentation, item E4. The push-in model, which represents the single greatest change to the way CUSD assigns and supports SPED students in years, is not included in the presentation. Not even a single data point specifically tied to push-in. No pros and cons of push-in or any mention of the impact push-in has had on our most struggling students or CUSD mission. Please ask yourself why admin chose not to provide any of the damning data and feedback it's receiving about the hastily implemented push-in model. Why did admin instead choose to add this blurb on page 4, which reads, state requirement 70% or more of students with IEPs to spend 80% or more of their day in general education settings? Note and consider the state does not require 100% of students with IEPs or 90% or 80% or even 75% of students. It requires 70% of students with IEPs to be in general ed classes. And of that 70%, these students are not required to spend 100% of their day in general ed classes. They're permitted to spend 20% in SAI or other support classes. Please notice there are no slides that clarify either the percentage of SPED students being serviced under the current push-in model or the percentage of the school day that those students are receiving support under the push-in model in general education classes. When comparing the state's requirement to current student assignments, it's clear the push-in model is being overprescribed in CUSD. Although the district has provided no data which it could have easily produced, direct observation suggests that well over the state requirement, 70% of our students, our SPED students, are in general education classes with no additional support in at least half of those classes. And in the classes where SPED teachers pop in for 15 minutes 3 times a week, this represents less than 20% of the support they used to receive. Please note also and ask, when comparing the state's requirement to current student assignments, it's clear the push-in model is being overprescribed or used in the CUSD.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to complete that last comment. Okay, so given the state's requirements, CUSD has lots of room to reassign our lowest performing SPED students. Nothing prevents CUSD from reassigning SPED students from general ed classes into specialized academic instructional classes they once thrived in. But that would cost money, and CUSD's real goal is to cut SPED costs, not serve students. CUSD has cut costs by lowering its overall SPED student population this year. The practice of slowing the process for qualifying new SPED students is memorialized on page 10 of the PowerPoint. The district's own data confirms that CUSD has reduced the total number of initial assessments by approximately 31%, from 85 in 24-25 to just 59 this year. CUSD also cut SPED costs by removing current students from special education. This is done by either placing them on 504s, alleging they no longer have a sufficient disability, or by simply denying them services altogether. Take a look at page 7, where in the last year alone, CUSD reduced student participation in the SPED program by 14% in an era where SPED numbers are climbing across the state and across the country. Interestingly, page 9 confirms that although SPED student numbers have decreased at almost all other schools, 19 less at CMS and 13 less at Catalino and 11 less at Aliso. The school with the greatest increase in SPED students is currently, would any of you like to guess? Summerland. Yes, Summerland. Fascinating, which has not lost any SPED students but has increased. Could this have anything to do with the uniquely affluent parent population at Summerland and their ability to demand the rights that other families in the district are unaware of or are incapable of securing due to language barriers or immigration status or educational levels or the variety of other skills possessed by the more affluent of our community, but not the majority of the families we serve? And speaking of financial savings pursued on the backs of our most vulnerable and at-risk students, page 16 confirms that the district has reduced SPED staffing by approximately 15% in the last year. Although a significant savings for the district, the reduction in SPED teachers and aides has left SPED students struggling across the district, especially at the secondary level where the push-in model has been the most overprescribed. Lastly, did any of our board members notice there is not even one slide itemizing the number and extraordinary legal costs associated with the variety of SPED-related lawsuits filed under Ms. Rigby and Ms. Haynes' watch? Wouldn't it be insightful data? In fact, just this evening, another $70,000 in SPED-related legal fees is contained in the district warrant. And just a few weeks ago, Superior Court Judge Anderley issued his order on SPED lawsuit case number 25 Charlie Victor 04752, ordering CUSD to pay $125,000 as a result of Ms. Pursoon and Ms. Rigby's unlawful efforts to remove SPED students.
Your time is up.
Against the Disabilities Act. Thank you.
Okay, now we would like to move on to a very exciting presentation, and we have Natalie Yanez from Southern California Edison here to present a very exciting award. Yes, could we get the Esquivel family to come up as well?
Yes, absolutely.
Good evening, Superintendent and board members. Thank you for having me tonight. My name is Natalie Yanez. I'm a government relations manager with Southern California Edison. I have the privilege of serving this region. And tonight is a special recognition. We had the opportunity to do this at the school site with Principal Cornejo and the whole team, and Board Chair Schaefer as well. And surprising David with this recognition, David has been selected as one of 30 high school seniors across Southern California Edison's territory to be one of our Edison Scholars. It is a unique, exclusive club, we like to call it. Again, David is part of the 2026 cohort. With that, David is awarded a $50,000 STEM scholarship. And in conversations with David this evening, he is looking at 3 different school options right now, but 2 of them somewhat local. And so again, thank you for having us here tonight. It is such an honor. I do want to hand it over to David to say a couple of words.
Hello, guys. So yeah, as she was saying, I'm looking at 3 colleges right now so far. My first option right now is USC, and following the USC, I have Cal Poly SLO at number 2, and UCLA at number 3. Yeah. Right now, I'm considering USC the most because they offered me the best package, and I'll be using this to good use. And I'm extremely grateful too because this eliminates that financial barrier that comes with going to college, and especially coming from like a low-income family, like this is gonna help out tremendously. And my parents have always told me that to work hard, and good things come from like working hard and doing good in school. And they never really had like that college fund for me, so I just made sure to lock in. And my 4 years in college, just at high school, I, try my best to get involved in my community and, do good in classes, take the hardest classes, all the AP classes, and, apply to as many scholarships as possible. And then this is what I got from it. Yeah, so thank you.
We're very proud
of all of our students. David is just one of many students who have, when he said 4 years of college at high school, he is probably right. If you take the amount of dual enrollment classes and AP classes, most of our students have taken almost 15 of those courses at Carpinteria High School. But one of the things that I always remind students is to always thank those individuals that have helped them along the way. Their parents, their friends, their family, their teachers, and their counselors. No one achieves anything without support. And that's something that David, I know, understands very well, and all of our students understand that. We have a great support system at Carpinteria High School. We have counselors, we have MESA program from UCSB, we have CalSOAP, and I'm sure you used all of them to support you, along with our mission scholars. So again, we're very proud of you. Congratulations. Felicidades. Esto es también algo parte de ustedes. Ustedes le han dado a su hijo las oportunidades y felicidades por sus logros que ha hecho aquí en la High School de Carpintería. Gracias. ¿Quieren decir algo? No? Oh. They don't want to say anything. All right. Thank you very much.
Yeah, well, we'd just like to really appreciate you, David. I mean, we're also very proud. This is the whole reason that all of us are on the school board is to see students get opportunities and make their lives better, and we know you're gonna accomplish great things in life, and this is really gonna be, and no matter which school you decide, those are all three very good choices. So we're super excited and hope you come back and share your experiences with the school, with the community, and keep us posted on your success.
I'll just say this is the second Edison Scholar from Carpinteria High, so very exciting. And it may be unconventional, but would you mind if I get a group photo of David, his parents, Principal Cornejo, and maybe I can snag myself in there too? You want to, in front of maybe the dais?
Monica, will you all take the photo?
Oh,
Yeah. That way, let's see what Monica's doing.
Diana, can you move it that way?
perfect, perfect. One more.
1 second. Thank you very much.
Okay, we'll move on now to the student representative report, and Lacey.
I just wanted to start off by saying congrats again to David, because just from my personal experience being classes with him and everything, I know how dedicated he is, and I just think he deserves everything that's coming his way. So, our school has hosted back to school night yesterday, and a lot of students and families showed up. There were clubs and sports teams that were trying to get people to join for next year. And classrooms were open too, so parents could meet teachers and get an idea of what school is going to be like next year and just for the rest of the school year. Seniors are also getting close to finalizing their college decisions, with most deadlines coming up on May 1st. There's also going to be a list of colleges seniors got accepted into shared at the next board meeting. This Saturday, our school is hosting the 106th Russell Cup, which is the oldest track meet in California. There's going to be over 39 schools that are coming to compete, so it should be a very big event. A lot of our athletes are also trying to qualify for CIF, so be sure to come out and support. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Lacey. Okay, we'll move on to the superintendent's report.
So tonight, I'd like to begin with some appreciation. I'd like to recognize Principal Corneo, Coach Latham, Athletic Director Cooney, and our Assistant Athletic Director Bryant, all the CHS student athletes, and all the community volunteers for organizing the 106th Russell Cup Track and Field Meet. As Lacey said, this Saturday, April 18th, you won't want to miss it. Now I begin with congratulations. I'd like to start with Isaac Coombs, a seventh grader at CMS. He won second place in the Santa Barbara County Spelling Bee, and he'll compete in the junior high division of the California State Spelling Bee in Manteca on April 25th. I have three more students, our high school seniors, Crystal Echeverra, Edwin Hernandez, and Valerie Pulido. They've all been selected as finalists for this year's Junior Carpinterian of the Year for their achievements in academics, leadership, and community service. So this Saturday, April 18th, the Junior Carpinterian of the Year will be announced at the Carpinteria Community Awards Banquet. More congratulations. Tricia Humbles, our Canalino counselor, and the Canalino kindergarten and first grade students who are planet protectors. They won this year's Environmental Stewardship Award from Explore Ecology. They will be celebrated at the annual award ceremony at the Cabrillo Pavilion in Santa Barbara on Thursday, April 16th. And then our very own Monica Thomas, our executive assistant to the superintendent, was awarded the Carpinteria Rotary Club's Vocational Service Award for outstanding achievement and excellence in service to the community, professionally and personally. Congratulations, Monica. We also have teacher awards, and congratulations, Marissa Santizo, a special ed teacher at CMS, and Matt McPherson, our LISO special ed teacher. They were all selected as recipients for the 7th annual Celebration Award for their leadership, teamwork, collaboration, and overall positive spirit in working with students in special education. They will be celebrated at the Glen Annie Golf Course Frog Bar and Grill in Goleta on Thursday, May 14th. And then Kirsten Newman, our CHS assistant principal, she'll be honored at the AHA Sing It Out celebration on Sunday, April 18th at the Libero Theater. She will receive an Angel Award for her dedication to the well-being of CHS students, parents, and staff. Congratulations to all. My next item is regarding the Paraprofessional Appreciation Day, which was April 1st. Paraprofessional Appreciation Day is celebrated annually to honor classroom assistants, teacher aides, and other paraprofessionals in recognition of their critical role in supporting students and teachers, particularly in special education. CUSD employs 89 instructional assistants, or approximately one instructional assistant for every 20 students. We also have National School Librarians Day, which was April 4th. National School Librarian Day is celebrated annually on April 4th to recognize the essential role school librarians play in fostering a love for reading, teaching digital literacy, and supporting academic success. We appreciate CUSD Library Media Techs, Caitlin Dameron at Aliso and Summerlin, Julie Soto at Canalino and Family School, Pat Ganero at the middle school, and Abigail Garcia at the high school. April 6th through the 10th was National Assistance Principals Week, and this week is in celebration of the unsung heroes in our school district. These dedicated folks work tirelessly to inspire teachers, motivate students, support their principal, create a positive learning community, and face many unpredictable challenges during the day. Please join me in thanking CUSD Assistant Principals James Anderson at the middle school, Kirsten Newman, and Jeremiah Sabenis at the high school. Next, I want to remind everyone about our CUSD open houses. You heard about last night at Carpinteria High School. Canalino and Family School's open house will be this Thursday at 4:30. Summerlin will be Friday at 2:30. The middle school is next week on the 23rd at 5, and preceding that will be Aliso School's open house April 23rd at 4 o'clock. Earth Day celebrations. Elementary students are celebrating and honoring Earth Day during the month of April. All District 3rd graders attend Katie Roberts Bluffs Day, an appreciation and advocacy for preservation of our natural lands. The Citizens for the Bluffs volunteers facilitate this annual event that includes rotating small group activities at our beautiful bluffs. There's an activity called the Eyes in the Sky, a rescue organization for red-tailed hawks and owls, a Chumash tradition of creating your own clamshell, watercoloring of the bluffs landscape, and learning how the Chumash utilize native plants for resources. Third graders also do walking field trips to Tomo Park, a Rotary Club investment to learn more about the Chumash land and traditions, and the respect and reverence for our natural resources in Carpinteria. Carpinteria Family School students participate in walking field trips to the state beach during low tide to study the living creatures in the tide pools, as well as shorebirds and human impact on the delicate ecosystem. Elementary students also participate in walking field trips to Carpinteria Salt Marsh to learn about the crucial importance of our salt marsh as a nursery for marine life, as well as plant life that is part of the food chain and habitat. In May, fourth grade students will be taking a boat trip in celebration of Earth Day taking a boat trip to Santa Cruz Island, where the focus is on human impact on the island ecosystem as well as the ocean. The students learn about the flora and fauna on the island and sometimes see dolphins and whales when crossing the channel. Also during April, the fifth grade students take a 3-day, 2-night trip to Catalina Island Marine Institute, CIMI, and learn a lot about the delicate ecosystems, how to minimize human impact on those systems, and an appreciation for the natural environment. Finally, at all our sites, we are working hard to teach our students to separate their waste into trash, recycle, and compost during breakfast and lunch, and to utilize reusable containers. My next item is about Poetry Month at the middle school. April is Poetry Month, and CMS staff and students will celebrate Poetry Month by creating pocket poems and display them in the CMS hallway for all to enjoy. And our last item is related to Measure U. At Aliso, during excavation for the building pad, excessive groundwater was discovered at a depth of 4.5 feet below the existing grade. This halted the excavation process, and the geotechnical and project engineers required dewatering services and soil stabilization in this affected area to meet the compacted fill requirements of the soils report. These cost and time impacts have initiated a change order with a time extension to the project schedule. Thanks.
All right, thank you. And now we will move on to a special education program presentation with Carolyn Haynes.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me here tonight. I wanted to start with, so interesting. So it messes my presentation just a little bit. That's okay. I wanted to start with a couple definitions right at the start, just so that we're all speaking the same language. I know the school board has heard some of this information before, but I wanted to make sure that the public has access to some of the SPED terms that are used a lot. The first thing I wanted to talk about is IDEA. It's the Individuals with Disabilities in Education Act, and it's a federal law that guarantees students with disabilities access to a free and appropriate public education. Along with that is free and appropriate public education, or FAPE. FAPE is a very specific legal term that ensures that students with disabilities have a right to receive specialized instruction and services that are tailored to their individual needs, and that there is no cost for those for parents. Another term that's really important is least restrictive environment. Least restrictive environment is a challenging principle within free and public education and under the IDEA Act, and it requires that students with disabilities be educated alongside their non-disabled peers to the maximum extent possible. What it requires is that we are always striving to have kids with disabilities in regular classrooms, is the language from the law. When we are taking a student out of their general education classroom to provide them services, we are only doing so when absolutely necessary. And then at the very bottom of the slide is information about State Indicator 5A, and what it includes two percentages, which makes it a little bit confusing. But what it's looking to do is ensure that most students who have IEPs spend most of their time in general education settings, that we're only pulling them out when absolutely necessary. And the 70% is a rising indicator that's changed over time. It's an increasing goal. So it's something that in the past we were looking at for 60% of those students, 62%, 65%. This year it's 70%, next year it'll be 72%. So it's an indicator that's been rising over time and is something we've been working hard on for a number of years. The other core tenet of the IDEA is something called Child Find. And Child Find is a federal mandate that requires school districts, public school districts, to proactively identify and evaluate children with disabilities. And what I want to say about that is it means all children, not just those who are enrolled in the public school district. So we serve students who are parentally placed at private schools. We serve preschoolers who are still at home with their parents. And we serve eligible students through their 22nd birthday, even once they have finished a high school program that has not yielded a diploma. I included this slide just as a little bit of background information regarding how we determine when students are eligible for services. What typically happens is we get a referral that can be from a teacher, it can be from a physician, it can be from the parent, it could be from Tri-Counties Regional Center doing a handoff of early childhood students. So kiddos who've had services sometime between birth and age 3, who are exiting eligibility under their services, they'll let us know. Once we receive the referral, the district has 15 days to look at the expected areas of disability and send a plan in order for us to do an assessment. We have 60 days to complete that assessment, and then we hold an IEP meeting to review those results and develop an IEP if that's appropriate. Let's talk a little bit about our students. I included the change from 24-25. Last year I presented to you something very similar to this slide. And we have seen a decrease in our student population, but it's pretty commensurate with the decline in student enrollment. So there's nothing super shocking here. Students with areas where we've seen less students are across most of our areas. Areas where we've had a little bit of an increase, multiple disabilities is sort of a complicated category, and it's not that we have more students with multiple disabilities, it's likely they're coming from a different category like intellectual disability or autism is sometimes a category that they're coming from. We also saw a tiny increase in orthopedic impairment, and those are kids generally who have mobility or something with their skeletal musculosystem that requires services and or equipment to actually move around the school campus. And then we had one student who became eligible under traumatic brain injury this year, which we did not have last year. And then this is just a quick pie chart of all that information. I'm a visual person and I like to see it presented this way. You can see that specific learning disability is the largest piece of that pie. Speech or language impairment, most often students who have speech or language impairment as their eligibility category are our youngest learners. And interestingly, autism used to be our 4th highest category, and now it's overtaken other health impairment, which was just an interesting data point. And then our population by school system. So over the last year, we were, as the time that I prepared these slides, 308 students in the district had IEPs. Those include preschool age students, eligible post-secondary students, and students who are served outside the district but still eligible within our boundaries. And that is a decline of about 42 students from the previous year. Let's see, some of the population changes. Summerland has seen an increase, and that's mostly because it's a very small population. So any change of a single student, it looks like it's a big change within the district. The other thing is the decline in students at CMS. A lot of those students moved over as 8th graders last year or 9th graders this year. There's a big cohort there. This is all pretty standard. What I did want to note is we currently are at 17%, which is actually a little bit down. The state of California and the national numbers are about 15%. So we've been working hard to better align our eligibility identification with the state numbers. We are looking really hard and doing a lot of training with our school psychology and our assessment teams, our school psychologists and assessment teams to make sure that we're applying the criteria appropriately and that we're working with schools and with families to best support students.
Could I ask you a question?
Of course.
In regard to that? So Does that mean we were over evaluating before, or how did I don't quite understand
Yes.
how you're changing that?
Yes, that's
approach.
exactly what that means. So when we are out of alignment with the state and the county and the nation, it usually means we were overqualifying students. In particular, I believe we were overqualifying students in the category of specific learning disability. Specific learning disability is a really broad, generic term, and it includes reading difficulties, math difficulties, writing difficulties. And there are a couple different models that are used to identify students with specific learning disability. County of Santa Barbara uses something called a pattern of strengths and weaknesses, and it requires a lot of skill in interpreting that model. We have an amazing team of psychologists who are doing a wonderful job working with school teams to apply those criteria and ensure that supports are in place for kiddos who don't meet eligibility in that category.
Okay, thanks.
So we're doing a better job. That's what you're seeing here.
Great.
And to that, we are doing less initial evaluations, partially because we have a smaller student population as a whole, and partially because we are working better earlier in the process to support students with general education support. So the special education team, I see it really as our mission to support all students and support staff, so that to work with our counselors, work with our general education teachers to make sure that supports are in place early on. Our special education teachers consult with their general education colleagues on how to support kiddos who have needs in their classroom, who may or may not have disabilities. It's as a whole, speaking as a mild moderate teacher myself, one of the greatest benefits to having a robust special education program is that teachers can work together and learn from each other and give each other ideas, and that's what's happening. We have a very high-performing special education team, and that's why we're seeing a little bit of the changes within these numbers. Talking about the IEP cycle, so once we've got that referral, we've done an assessment, we've identified a kiddo with an IEP, we start the beginning of a 3-year cycle. So that first year is considered the initial IEP. The second year, we do an annual review. So we don't do a big comprehensive assessment, but we do localized assessment. So we're looking at student progress on their goals, we're looking at their grades, we're looking at their teacher feedback, we might do some informal assessment, and we update that IEP. We do that 2 years in a row, and at the end of the third year, we do another really big assessment, and we reconsider whether or not the student still requires services. The state really wants us to be looking critically, and the goal is not to take kids out of general education settings, and to make sure that students who are being taken out of settings for services really require those. I wanted to highlight some of our programs and some of the language we use in special education. Resource is a term, we used to have something, a credential called a resource specialist credential, and that's sort of gone away. Special education teachers now generally have one of 3 different credentials, either a mild, moderate support needs credential, an extensive support needs credential, or an early childhood credential. The state makes changes to their credentials over time, and sort of an idea of a resource qualification has gone away, and it's sort of fallen into this mild, moderate support needs model. Within our district and across the county, a resource program is a special education classroom that generally serves students with mild to moderate support needs, and those teachers serve kiddos sometimes in their own classroom, so taking them away from their gen ed classroom because they need a quiet, distraction-free environment to do something like a phonics lesson or intensive math instruction. But oftentimes our teachers are serving students in their general education classroom. So this is a picture of Matt McPherson in his room 2 classroom at Aliso, this absolutely gorgeous classroom. And he spends part of his day in here working with students, and he spends part of his day in a whole bunch of other classrooms at Aliso working with students in their general education classrooms. That is considered the gold standard of mild moderate education, is to be able to work alongside our colleagues and have students be in their classrooms with their peers, with their gen ed teachers learning the same things. A special education teacher in that setting is really supporting the learning of the student and customizing it so that they're able to have that maximum access to instruction. We have a resource program in our elementary sites, our middle school sites, and our high school sites. Special day classes are meant for students who have extensive support needs, especially extensive academic needs. These students tend to have disabilities such as intellectual disabilities, autism, orthopedic impairment, multiple disabilities, and they require a higher level of support and specialized instruction in order to access general education in general. A lot of our special day class students spend somewhere between 50 and 75% of their time in a special day class setting. So most of their day with a special education teacher, but some of their day in general education settings. All of our students in special day classes do have recess and nutrition and lunch with their peers. So that's a high priority within our program, is that they have access to general education peers. A lot of their instruction is happening in a specialized classroom. Within the special ed world, related services refer to specialized things that are not just instruction. So they might be speech therapy, they might be counseling services, behavior support services, and they're provided by a whole team of specialists who work with them. So this is a picture of Mackenzie Thornton. She's our occupational therapist. She's phenomenal. She is actually guiding an entire, in this picture, a TK whole class group of rotations. So she's in there working alongside Angela White and the instructional assistants who are always in that classroom supporting kiddos. Some of the kids are doing a cutting activity. Some of the kids are doing like a drawing activity. One of my first slides had her leading this like obstacle course where they're jumping across little bumpy things that are on the carpet so that they're working on their balance and their gross motor skills. She's amazing. She works at every site in our district with a whole range of students, and she's an absolute amazing ambassador for this group of specialized professionals. And lastly, we have aids and supports, and those include things like instructional assistants. They can be specialized equipment. Transportation, we provide transportation to about 40 kids within the district as part of their IEP. What you're seeing in this picture is Laura Fraley working with 2 students who she routinely supports. One of those students is using an adaptive swing that we added on the Catalino campus last year. We added that to support our kiddos who need it, and what we found is more kiddos than just those who have it on their IEP really benefit from a swing that has straps and that they have a little more support when swinging. It was quite a hit. Mr. Quintero and I talk often about how we best have equipment like that at Catalino to benefit all students. And our special education staff. So, you know, as our enrollment declines, so is our need for staff. Sometimes we are losing staff because we need fewer staff, and sometimes they're hard to find. We went from 5 psychologists last year to 4, and it is something we're managing. Our psychologists work really hard, and they work together very collectively, and I'm really proud of the work that they do. We have 14 special education teachers this year, which is down a little bit from last year. We have 5 speech therapists, 1 adapted PE teacher. 52 of our instructional assistants specifically work with students with disabilities. Almost all of our instructional assistants spend at least part of their day working with students with disabilities in a variety of ways. It's just a tiny bit down from last year. We continue to have 1 occupational therapist. We are using fewer behavior technicians. Those are outside specialists who we bring in to work with kids with significant behavioral challenges that need a specialist. And we have 1 BCBA, or behavior analyst. And then some of the professional learning that we've done with our certificated staff this year, this is a partial list. Mental health is a huge area where we're providing a lot of support. Having a fantastic BCBA has helped us really hone in on strategies that our certificated staff can use to better support students and to better support their general education colleagues and students in general education settings. We do crisis prevention intervention training. That's the CPI card. It's sometimes called the blue card, and it's used to make sure that students who are having a behavioral crises or emergencies have supports and that they are kept safe and that their peers are kept safe. We also do significant professional learning for our classified staff. We typically do this on Wednesdays once a month. I lead these, and I have a whole host of other specialists who come support me, like our behavior analysts, our occupational therapists, speech therapists, and we work on all kinds of things. They also do crisis prevention intervention training, professionalism, confidentiality. We talk about behavior plans. We collect data. We work on emergency procedures, and a lot of talk about positive behavioral supports for all students across our sites. And I think that's the end of my slides.
Great, thanks, Carolyn.
Yeah.
Anybody have any questions? Yeah, great.
When you have the slides about staff development, is that specifically the special education staff, or are those all of the staff of all of the teachers throughout the district?
This is specifically special education staff.
Okay.
Yes.
Can you tell me, I know, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but typically special ed staff members are more generalized. They're not math teachers, they're not science teachers. But for our teachers that are in the classrooms, what exact training are they getting in order to support having these kids be in general ed? So like what would Ms. Vergeer get or Ms. Foster get in terms of support for knowing how to handle specific IEP cases?
That's a really good question. So if we're talking about a specific student in a specific case, a couple ways that gets handled. At the most basic level, the special education teacher and the general education teacher typically work together and they look at an IEP together. If we have a student who has a behavior plan, they would go over the behavior plan or provide specific information to the teacher or teachers that most generally work with that student. Also, principals provide training during their monthly staff meetings, and I know principals have brought in our behavior analysts to help provide specific supports. I know that both Brett and Luis have had our BCBA in recently to work with teachers on specific strategies to support general education students. So not necessarily focusing on students with IEPs, but focusing on supporting all students and all behavior in classrooms. I know I'm happy to support teachers, and I sometimes get invited to collaborate with general education teachers. They have a question. Very recently, there's a couple of teachers, particularly Aliso has reached out and asked for support from our behavior analyst to work on helping them set up some structures in their class to support students.
Okay, thank you.
Is there a difference between the credential, a special education credential at the elementary level versus secondary level?
For special education teachers, no. So
they're not like a subject specific credential.
No. So there's an early childhood credential that covers our very youngest students, basically 3 years old through kindergarten age. The mild moderate credential covers students TK through 22 years old. And then extensive support needs also covers students TK through 22 years old.
Okay.
And education specialist credentials are, by nature, they're generalists. So if you are a mild moderate teacher and that's your training is that credential program, you have 1 or 2 classes on reading instruction, 1 or 2 classes on math instruction, and 1 class on content, meaning like history and social studies. But your specialty is really on intervention, so early reading instruction and intensive math instruction. For our extensive support needs teachers, theirs is on working with students with significant cognitive disabilities. How do we stimulate learning in students who that doesn't come very easy for them? Our extensive support needs teachers also have additional training on working with students who have things like visual impairments and orthopedic impairments. All of our credentialed teachers now have training on traumatic brain injury and working with students with autism.
Okay, so at the but part of the IDEA is that those at the secondary level, those students need subject-specific instruction. Is that part of what the act?
No, so special ed teachers are really the whole goal of specialized academic instruction, which is the service that special ed teachers provide, is to help students meet their IEP goals. When we talk about developing an IEP, the first thing that an IEP team would look at are what are the students' what's their current functioning? What are their present levels of performance? From there, the IEP team would design goals for that student. So a student might have a goal to be able to decode CVC words. So CAT is a CVC word. That goal would mean when the student is working with the special ed teacher, their goal is to be working on developing that skill, that decoding CVC words goal. Generally speaking, special ed teachers aren't most of the time responsible for teaching all of the required standards for a particular grade.
No, I understand. That was. I think I probably didn't pose the question well enough. I'm just curious. So part of the act, the IDEA Act, is that those at the secondary level, students get subject-specific instruction, and I'm trying to understand the push-in model, and so if 70% of our special ed students, and I'm assuming this is just mild, moderate.
No, it means all of
It
them.
means all of them. Okay.
It means all of them, age 3 through 22.
Okay, so
regardless of their
70%
disability.
of our special ed students, and that is a climbing ladder, right? It means it's going to be higher each successive year.
Yes.
Okay, so 70% of our special ed students need to spend 80% of their time
Or more.
or more, so a minimum of 80% of their time, and a minimum of 70% of our students
Yes.
need to spend 80% or more of their time in a general education classroom
Correct.
with subject-specific instruction, with a credentialed
With a
subject.
general education
But-
teacher, yes, or in a general education environment.
General, but I mean, at the secondary level, doesn't that mean they have to have the teachers are subject-specific? I mean,
Yes.
they're credentialed in math or English or science, right?
Yes.
Okay, all right. So I'm just trying to get my mind around how this works. You know, we had the presentation at our last meeting, and it was, I had some questions there, and I'm just trying to understand it.
Sure.
Because and how it's changed from, say, 2 or 3 years or 4 years ago, say. How has the model changed?
So strictly speaking, for special education, there's not a specialized academic instruction is specialized academic instruction. So
Yeah.
one of the things that we differentiate on an IEP is the location where services will be provided. And the biggest differentiation is it a general education setting, meaning happening in a regular classroom, or is it happening outside of that? So if I were a teacher writing an IEP, I might say that the student will have 120 minutes for a second grader working on early literacy skills, 120 minutes of specialized academic instruction each week outside of general education, meaning they're going to come to a special education resource room and work in a small group or individually with a teacher on those skills specifically. That means that 120 minutes a week, they are not in their regular classroom. What happens and why it feels like a big shift is when our fifth graders are leaving the elementary setting. That's a pretty standard amount of specialized academic instruction for a student with a learning disability to have. When they leave our elementary setting with that level of service, in the past they were going to the middle school and having 1 or 2 or 3 periods a day in a special education setting. So it was a big change. What we're looking at right now at the middle school is continuing on the same similar amount of service for those students. And every IEP is different. So what we're starting to see as this year's middle school IEPs are coming around is IEP teams, which are made up of a parent, a gen ed teacher, a special ed teacher, an administrator, and then any of those providers for the related services. They're looking at, is this model serving the kid? Is this what we currently have on the IEP? Is it working? Is the student making progress in their general education classes? Are they passing those classes? Are they doing well? Are they learning what they're supposed to be learning? And are they making progress on those goals? And if they're not, we're looking at, do we need to be doing something different?
Okay, in those classes, the standard is the same, or are we?
Yes, the standard's the same.
The standard is the same.
So unless the student
even
has...
the student with the learning disability, like a cognitive learning disability?
That's a great question. When we look at students, most students who are considered mild to moderate support needs, most of our students with learning disabilities in particular, they are expected to master all the same standards as their typically developing peers. They are held accountable by the state for all of the same standards as their peers. When we have a student who has an intellectual disability, they may be eligible for a reduced number of standards, but it takes them off of a traditional diploma pathway.
Okay.
And those are generally students in our special day class settings. So always, our students have been expected to meet the same learning standards as their typically developing peers, unless they are one of those extensive support needs students who has a cognitive disability and requires a reduced number of standards or modifications to their academic program.
So those standards really haven't changed?
Correct.
Okay, so it just we're implementing them differently?
So the way that we're servicing students is different.
Okay.
Can I ask something about that? So I'm just curious your thoughts on, I think about a classroom where there's 1 or 2 students in the corner getting in general ed classroom, separate care, separate instruction, and then the teacher teaching the regular class, and how that works in terms of, I have a niece who's special needs, and I know she has attention deficit, like that would not serve her, right? And it probably wouldn't serve the rest of the class either to have like this distraction. So how do we manage that? Like what are the, I don't know if that's something that the teachers are concerned about, but how are we managing that environment? It would be hard for me as an adult to have somebody sitting right there giving different instruction.
Yeah, and it's not usually I can't speak to exactly how it works in every classroom at our middle school, but in general, when a special education teacher is working in a general education classroom, they're working in collaboration with that gen ed teacher, so maximizing when that time is. Very often, what I imagine should be happening is the special ed teacher is working in that classroom when the students are working on something like an essay, and both teachers are circulating and working with students. Perhaps the special ed teacher is working in a small group in the back, or is taking a small group outside the classroom so they have a little less distraction.
Okay. And then I guess my other question is, can you define what the other health, I know that was about 15% of our students, so what does that look like?
Yeah, and this is something I end up saying a lot of times in IEP meetings. Other health impairment is a very broad category, and it includes things like a student who has kidney failure. And because of their kidney failure, they have different needs in order to access the general education environment. It could be someone who has a genetic disorder that means that their genes are expressing in a particular way and they have lower muscle tone. But what it most often means is students who have problems with attention. They may or may not have a diagnosis of ADHD, but oftentimes other health impairment is the largest population of students in that category. It's for problems with attention.
Sorry, I have so many questions. So say I'm a student with a specific learning disability, I'm in 8th grade, and I'm not hitting all of my goal markers or all of my, that are set up in my IEP. Do I go on to ninth grade? I mean, if I'm reading at a third grade level, if I'm, maybe I'm at 50% conservatively of my goals, do I move to ninth grade?
Generally, yes. Yes.
And now I haven't learned eighth grade curriculum and I'm learning ninth grade curriculum, technically, right?
Yes.
Just curious. It's very interesting. I mean, that just feels like an uphill battle for, right? I mean, for everybody.
I just had one on the special education staff. I know in the past we've hired a lot of contract folks, right? So out of these numbers, is there a percentage that are contract versus?
This year, we have no contract special education teachers. What we're seeing is a big trend in our related service providers. I don't have it at the top of my head, but I can get you the exact breakdown of that. I know we have 3 of our speech pathologists are through an agency, our occupational therapist, our behavior, our BCBA, or behavior analyst, is through an agency. We would love to hire them directly.
Yeah.
We would love to.
The unicorns, right? So the instructional assistants are primarily contract or employee?
Instructional assistants are always direct hired by the district.
Direct employees, okay, thank you.
I mean, our neighboring districts like Santa Barbara, they hire a lot through agencies, and we're fortunate that we have not needed to do that.
Great, okay, thank you.
So are the model that we're implementing at the middle school, are we utilizing the similar model at the high school?
No.
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 How is it implemented there?
So, I mean, always, what classes a student gets placed into, what services a student is placed into, or as an IEP team decision. So it's not a single person is making that decision. At the high school currently, our students are served either in general education classes, and then they might have a study skills class with a special ed teacher. They might have advisory with a special ed teacher. They may get consultation service with a special ed teacher. Or they may have a special, like a section of English or a section of math with a special ed teacher.
But we're still complying with the 70-80 model.
That makes it harder, but yes.
We are though.
Yeah, I mean, yes.
Okay. So I'm trying to understand the reticence or the resistance at the middle school, and the differentiated instruction seems to be an issue, and the integration of special ed students in the gen ed classrooms, along with, I guess, EL students. And I'm trying to understand how we could do it differently and still be in compliance with the rules. Is that a loaded question?
Yeah, a little bit, yeah. I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think that's a question for Carolyn.
Yeah. No, I know it's. I'm actually just asking myself.
Yeah, I think that's a question for Dr. Pursoon, her special ed staff, and her regular ed staff, and Carolyn at the site. I think the difference, I will point out, the difference, you look at a system that's K-12. And so when you're at elementary and in special ed, the special ed teams and the parents want their students in the regular classroom as much as possible. And the difference between the regular ed student performance and special ed performance is not a huge gap. But as you go up in the years, of course, the gap gets a little bit bigger. In middle school, the gap is not so big as it is in high school.
Yeah.
So as we move up in 4th and 5th grade, the parents still want their students in regular ed as much as possible. And then we move to the middle school, and the students and the parents want the students as much as possible in the regular ed classroom. So we provide that special ed service in the classroom. I think what's confusing right now is we are receiving different information you're hearing from the site tell you information. I have different information from Dr. Pursoon and Carolyn about the time and how much time SPED is spending, supporting. But we have the data that our SPED and EL students aren't making the kind of progress that we need to. So this is a question for Dr. Pursoon and James to go back to the site, and Carolyn, and to work and to take a look at that and figure out how we can support staff, because there are staff that have success with special ed and EL students in their classroom.
I realize that. Yeah.
So you look at those teachers who have those strategies and are being successful, and then you replicate that across the departments and then across the school. So it definitely is a conversation at the school site, but it makes sense progression-wise that as you're moving up in a system that you're going to, if the gap is getting bigger between what the classroom, general classroom is performing and the special ed, that you are going to have to pull out students and have a very discrete English class.
Yeah.
The English class at high school for special ed students is very different than the general ed English class.
I understand.
Right?
Yeah.
So we're trying to work with the whole system as the students progress to each grade.
Well,
Yeah.
I guess I would.
Let's keep two comments. If you're going to talk, go outside. And we're having a meeting. This is our meeting. Contrary to what some people think, this is the board's meeting, not the public meeting.
Oh, I was just going to add, I think it was an important point you made that it is an iterative process with a parent, a general ed teacher, the SPED teachers with these students, right? So it's, it's a moving target. There are lots of people involved in the decisions with these students, so that's really good to hear too, right? It's not we're following some rules and then just putting kids in classrooms. We're constantly reevaluating the situation, is what I heard you say tonight.
Yes.
With input
Well,
from the
it's a team
parents.
effort, right? I mean, it's an
Yeah,
IEP
so,
team.
yeah.
It's not a, I mean, that's what the way I understand the IEP process is
It is.
it's
And the
not
goal
a-
of an IEP team
not
meeting
a
is.
top-down.
Yeah, it's
edict.
consensus. So we want everybody there to be in agreement that the decisions made by that IEP team are in the best interest of the student. And that's why they are comprised of a pretty diverse team that includes the parents and a gen ed teacher and a special ed teacher and an administrator. And at the high school level, it often includes the student who's also involved in that decision-making process to determine how to best get them where we all want them to go, which is, a high school diploma and beyond into the world, into success. So it is. And to your point, my slide earlier showed we have an initial, a triennial meeting, an annual meeting, and an annual meeting, implying over 3 years we've had 3 meetings. And that may be the case for many of our students, but there are students where we've had 5 meetings this year because we're needing to make small changes and address different things that come up throughout the year to meet the needs of the student, because they're kids and they're complex and things happen. So, yeah.
Great. Okay. You guys, anything else? Jeanette?
I just think my last question was about, I know when we did the school site visits, we noticed, and correct me if the term is wrong, but there were like a bit of mid-severe students that required almost like nursing help and care. Are those at all extracted from being in that 70% number because teachers aren't nurses and that would be a very difficult situation, or they're lumped in anyways and the state doesn't really care?
Yeah, so when we're looking at that 70% number, it's of all students with IEPs within the district.
Okay, thank you. That's what I was afraid the answer was, but.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Carolyn.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
Okay, we will move on to F, board policies. Any public comment on board policies?
Alrighty. No, one moment. Thank you. So I just want to note that there's a lot of imagining going on in that last presentation. It was fascinating. This evening's updated policies contain commitments to protect children, report harassment, protect our immigrant families, and serve our most at-risk students. If our board officials were to hold our most infamous administrators accountable to the very policies being updated this evening, the board would be required to discipline, if not even remove, the superintendent and the CMS principal immediately. Considering just board policy 4119.24 for a moment, how many of the provisions contained in this policy were violated by the behavior of Ms. Rigby and Ms. Pursoon as it pertains to Superior Court Case 25 Charlie Victor 04752? Court documents state that Superintendent Rigby and Principal Pursoon engaged in a campaign of harassment and intimidation against the district family, including trespassing on their private property, interrogating their landlord and employer, and demanding written confirmations under threat of immigration consequences. How does the school board reconcile the behavior of these notorious administrators with the policies it is approving this evening? Feel free to answer. Thank you. Setting aside the extraordinary cost to taxpayers and district resources, you will dismiss, or will you dismiss, facts confirming these board policy violations simply because a settlement was reached? Does a settlement somehow make Superior Court Judge Anderley's decision meaningless? Do you support or will you dismiss the basis for his order requiring CUSD to pay $125,000 as a result of Pursoon and Rigby's unlawful efforts to, quote, remove 3 SPED students entitled to services under the Individuals with Disabilities and Education Act? Thank you. In regard to BP and AR 0450 Comprehensive Safety Plan, it is about time the board memorializes some of these expectations. Of course, the question remains, will they actually be practiced? It adds child neglect to the required reporting procedures. It authorizes, if not even requires, a principal to notify a parent guardian if, quote, a sexual offense occurs on campus. Here, the question is really more, what took you so long? And why wasn't that already in place? It also expands the definition of violent crime. It would be good to know how our board officials understand the value of the new definition. We asked last month and we were met with silence. Are any of you better prepared to clarify today? At any moment, feel free to cut me off. Thank you. In January, when Superintendent Rigby announced changes pertaining to BPs 41924 and .24, maintaining appropriate adult-student interaction.
Thank you.
Shucks. Okay, well, another day. Thank you.
Okay, we're being asked to approve the following board policy and administrative regulation 0450, comprehensive safety plan. Board is being asked to approve the second reading and adopt the updated BP and AR 0450 comprehensive safety plan regulation updated to reflect new law SB 848 from 2025, which expands the list of persons who may cooperate in the review of the comprehensive school safety plan to include the district's public entity risk pool, joint powers authority, or insurance provider. As child neglect, the reporting procedures are required to be included in the CSSP, requires when the CSSP is next reviewed and address the supervision and protection of children from child abuse or neglect or sexual offenses. Adds a sex offense that has occurred on campus to acts that the principal is authorized to notify parents and guardians, expands the definition of violent crime, and it will additionally regulation updated to reflect new law SB 98 from 2025 and new law AB 962. Can I get a motion to approve?
I'll motion to approve board policy 0450.
Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, board policy and exhibit 4119.21 and 4219.21 and 4319.21, professional standards. Can I get a motion to approve?
Sorry. I'll motion to approve agenda item 2, board policy and professional standards.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, board policy 419.24, 4219.24, and 4319.24, maintaining appropriate adult-student interaction, second reading. Can I get a motion?
I will motion to approve board policy for maintaining appropriate adult-student interactions.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, board policy and administrative regulation 5125, student record, second reading. Can I get a motion?
I'll motion to approve board policy and regulation 5125 for student records.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, and then the fifth one, board policy and administrative regulation and exhibit 5125.1, release of directory information, second reading. Can I get a motion?
I'll motion to approve board policy, administrative regulation, and exhibit 5125.1.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Move on to item G, educational services. Any public comment on item G, educational services? If there's no public comment, we will move on to,
Save our public comment, thank you.
all right, thank you. We are being asked to approve the one-year renewal of the Lexia Learning System Core 5. Board is being asked to approve this renewal. This software provides struggling students with an individual systematic and structured approach to phonological awareness, phonics, structural analysis, automaticity, vocabulary, and comprehension. Lexia Core 5 reading has been used in the elementary schools for struggling readers in the primary grades during summer school as well as after-school program. The cost of this one-year renewal is $10,660 and will be paid for from the general fund curriculum budget. Can I get a motion to approve?
I'll move to approve the Lexia renewal.
Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion on that? We're happy?
Our students are making good progress at the elementary level.
Great.
Yeah.
All right. I've heard good things about it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, item H, business operations facility. Do we have any public comment on item H, business operations facility?
Alrighty, thank you. This evening's warrants confirm that CUSD spent another $170,000 on legal fees. $100,000 towards trying to still continue to defend the absolute loser of an attack on union leadership, and then another $70,000 due to special education legal action. I didn't hear any of you, I don't think any of us heard any of you ask our special education director for the truly meaningful information. Everything she shared was stuff you could have looked up in a book. Nobody asked about legal fees, the $70,000. Nobody asked about a variety of things.
We're not addressing her presentation.
Yeah, but we're talking about money right now. Thank you.
Well,
and so none of you asked about the money.
You're talking about her
and it would be
presentation.
wise to ask about the money, Mr. Schaefer.
And if you don't have any comments on
So
this
after
warrant,
spending approximately $600,000 in February, which was the exact number you budgeted for an entire year worth of legal fees, in just the last month, CUSD has spent $850,000 on legal fees. That's more than a $250,000 overrun in a 3-month period for a period that's supposed to last a year. Anybody asking questions about that? And remember, this calculation does not even contain the $1 million plus in legal fees spent between August and December of 2025, which should also be applied to the legal budget overrun. You ask any questions about that? So moving on to the proposed budget draft, we'll start with page 6. The slide is a bit misleading. The majority of our 6-hour employees are not receiving district health care. On the comparatively low wages they earn, most cannot afford to pay the difference to cover the rest of the plan premium. Since the arrival of Superintendent Rigby, CUSD has strategically positioned to increase the number of classified part-time employees and minimize the number of classified full-time employees, thus removing health care from many of our colleagues. It is not a coincidence that CUSD budgets and shares that classroom aides cost the district $19,000+ for health and welfare costs, which most don't receive. The practice allows CUSD to apply dollars it knows it is not spending, which lowers the district's reserves in year outs and suggests that there are insufficient funds when it comes time to negotiate salary increases. If you look at page 9, you will find verification upon the very pattern cited in these comments, where the majority of our 6-hour employees are not receiving district health care. Page 9 clarifies that only 48% of our 6-hour employees are receiving health care, and only 40% of those who are working less. On page 7, here again, the district's projections underestimate revenues while
Thank you.
overestimating
Your comments.
expenditures.
Your time is
When
up.
will you all be having a budget study session next? This is it.
We're studying the budget.
All of this. So the conversation will be the budget study session, is that right? The robust conversation we look forward to hearing. Thank you.
Reading the warrants, I noticed two special education invoices. Same attorney, Andrea Marcus. Last year, I talked about all of these lawsuits by Andrea Marcus. I've lost track of how many special education students has she represented. How many? 5? 7? Those are her fees. What about the amount that the district has paid on has paid on settlements? Lost track of that. Who's responsible? The district. They represent personnel, teachers, employees. This means that the most vulnerable students, special education students, are not regarded as special students by the district, by administration. That's sad and disappointing. What steps are being taken to avoid these lawsuits? Because they seem not to have an ending. For years, generally, I've been reading lawsuits. Imagine if you had not had all of these legal invoices by all of the attorneys. You could have, right now, 30% on reserves. And you shouldn't be worried about how much a district will be getting on property taxes. So once again, what are you doing to correct this? Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to warrants. We're being asked to approve the warrants from March 6th through April 9th in the amount of $1,492,192.83. Can I get a motion to approve?
I'll move to approve the warrants.
I'll second.
Any discussion on the warrants? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, gifts, grants, and donations. First donation is from the California Avocado Festival for the FFA program in the amount of $500. I'm actually going to read through all of these and we can make one motion. And then the second donation is a donation from the Rotary Charitable Foundation to the the high school music club in the amount of $3,000. And the third is a donation from the Santa Barbara Bowl Foundation to the music club in the amount of $700. The fourth is a donation from the CMS parent group to the school district middle school student store in the amount of $1,500. And then the last one is a donation from Paul Cordero to the middle school after-school swimming program in the amount of $200. Thank you, Paul. May I get a motion to approve all of those?
I'll move to approve with gratitude these donations and gifts.
Second.
Great. I want to thank everyone who's continually stepping up and helping all of our extracurricular programs at all of our schools. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we'll move on to item 3, a presentation of our proposed draft budget for the 26-27 school year. And Jason Caff will present.
Okay, well, let me start off by, first of all, thanking the board for allowing me to do this presentation. I find that it's always beneficial for myself and also for the board and the community to have a better idea as to how the budget works and how it is generated for the next couple years. So with that, I'll go ahead and get started. On the first slide here, entitled District Goals, we just have some of the district's goals, which I'll just kind of read relatively quickly, which includes increased student learning, promote safe and respectful schools, develop budgets to support educational programs while maintaining sustainability, increasing efficiency and effectiveness of district operations, and to build community support and engagement. The next slide is entitled Core Budgeting Principles, which you can see there, the first 3 bullets, which also includes a reference to BP 3100, which includes the board's minimum fund balance for reserve purposes. On the next slide, which is entitled Budget Timelines and Major Milestones, you'll notice here that we're in April. We're on the April 15th slide. Then we'll have another meeting in May, which we can go over the budget. But what I really want to highlight is in June. In June, we have 2 meetings. We have one on June 9th. At the June 9th meeting, the board will hear the public hearing on the budget and also the public hearing on the LCAP. And then the next meeting will be held June 16th. And on that meeting, we will bring back the budget for the board for adoption, as well as the LCAP for adoption, because the budget and the LCAP have to go to the public hearings and to the budget adoptions together, because they're linked. The next slide here is entitled the 26-27 Governor's January Proposal. You'll notice at the top of the slide we have the projected LCFF COLA, and then next to that we have our property tax projections for the 3 out years. Since we are a basic A district, for us, the most applicable one is the property tax projections. And for the 3 years out, being 26-27, 27-28, and 28-29, we are projecting 4% increases. Right in the middle there of that slide, you'll notice a chart entitled Pension Rates. And what we're just trying to show here is just the pension rates for somebody who is on PERS. And somebody who's on PERS is if they're classified. That person pays into PERS. On the other side is if somebody is certificated, they pay into STRS. So if we look at like the middle of that chart for 26-27, we see the rate of 26.4% for PERS. So the district has to pay into PERS 26.4% of a classified person's salary. For STRS, right below that, the rate is 19.1%. So for a certificated person's salary, the district has to pay in 19% of that person's salary into STRS. Now, the reason I bring this up, because this is kind of a hidden cost that some people may not see, but on the district side, we see it because it is a significant cost to the district, both for PERS and STRS. So I just kind of wanted to highlight that. And below there, for the third chart you'll see below, That includes the total statutory benefits for salaries. So that includes STRS and PERS and the related OASDI, Medicare, unemployment, workers' comp, etc. So if we look, for example, in the 26-27 column for somebody who's classified, the district has to contribute 38.21% of that person's pay to the respective benefits. Similarly, for somebody who is certificated, the district has to contribute 22.34% of certificated people's salaries. We have to take that percentage and apply that to the respective benefits that go along with somebody's salary. So once again, I just wanted to highlight those percentages because those are costs to the district, which once again, people don't normally see, but they are significant. On the next slide here, entitled Sample Cost to District for Positions, we just have 3 positions, and I'll just kind of go over 2 of them, for example. In the middle there, we'll notice a custodian position. That's a 12-month position. So for next year, for example, the salary for that position is about $50,000. But once again, like I just mentioned from the prior slide, there are various statutory benefits that go along with that position's pay. So the salary is about $50,000. The statutory benefits that the district must pay with regards to that position is about $18,000. And for next year, for a full-time position, that person will most likely take health insurance, which is the health and welfare contribution. And for next year, it'll be about $26,000. So when we add up the person's salary, statutory benefits, and health and welfare, the cost of that position to the district is about $95,000. Similarly, right below that, we have a sample cost for a teacher. So if a teacher earns for next year about $75,000, with that pay goes along statutory benefits. That's an additional $16,000 the district has to pay. Once again, that's a full-time position, so that teacher will most likely take health insurance at a cost to about $26,000. So once again, once we add up salary, statutory benefits, and the health and welfare, the cost for that teaching position is about $118,000 to the district. On this next slide, entitled History of Property Tax Revenues, we have a history going back to basically 1920 through 2728. But as you can see, we're in the last 3 lines of this chart. Right now, we're in 2526. Just last week, in early April, we received from the county office our P2, which is our kind of revised property tax projections for 2526. Fortunately, they came in a little bit higher than they were estimating at P1. It came in about $73,000 higher than what it was at P1, so that increase has been reflected here in what we're looking at tonight in 2526. But for 2627 and 2728, like I mentioned before, we are projecting 4% property tax projections for the out years. Once again, those are just projections. Nobody really knows what those are going to be, but this is kind of the best information that we have after talking with the county assessor's office.
When you say we, you mean it's in consult with the county?
Correct.
Yes.
Correct.
Okay.
Thank you.
It's not a number that we as a district are pulling out of the air.
No, it's not.
Okay.
So just to kind of go off that, so the way this works is that for 25-26, I'm taking our 25-26 estimated property tax projections and basically applying 4%. And so that's why you're seeing 4% for 26-27 and 27-28, because we're projecting a 4% increase. So those projections have been included. The next slide here is entitled History of Cost of Living Increases, which basically is a history of the salary increases. Because you can see the chart goes back to 21-22, and it's going out to 26-27. Obviously, we're in 25-26, and so 25-26 is settled, so that's why you'll see 5% in that section there for certificated and classified. But you'll notice in 26-27, there's a star with a TBD, which is to be determined, for the reason being that we have not finished negotiations for 26-27. And just kind of for a frame of reference, for a 1% increase for the union, that equates to about $200,000 per 1% increase. So 1% is approximately 200,000. If it's 2%, we're looking at about 400,000, just to kind of give the board percentage to dollar amount generalization. On this next slide here, it's entitled History of Health and Welfare Increases, going back from 21-22 through 26-27. We have received next year's health and welfare increases, so that's what you're seeing in that far right-hand column there. As you'll notice, and would be expected, there's a progression of increasing costs throughout the year. So if we look at 25-26, for example, the Anthem ADE cost for a full-time person is about $24,313. For next year, that same plan will cost the district about $26,401. So what that means district-wide and what I see on my side is that this cost increase equates to about $433,000 for the district from this year to next year. For basically the same plans, the district's going to have to pay about another $430,000 more for these respective plans.
Which could be equated to a 2% COLA.
Correct. Thank you. Yes. Oops. On the next slide here, it's entitled 5-Year Financial History with Current Year Total General Fund. So we're looking at the entire general fund, which is the unrestricted and restricted combined. And once again, it starts back in 21-22, but for purposes of this slide, I'm just kind of looking at the very far right, which is entitled Estimated Actuals 25-26. So what we're projecting here is in this column is the starting fund balance is about $4.9 million. Then for this year, we have our revenues and expenditures. So we are projecting an increase to the fund balance of about $626,000, bringing our ending fund balance to about $5.6 million, which equates to about a 7.71 reserve. Something in this last column I do want to highlight is that you'll notice when we compare 24-25 revenues to the 25-26 revenues, you'll see how they basically go from $41.8 million to $47.9 million. That fairly large increase is due to a couple unusual factors. One of those being that the 218 claims and how we sold the Baylor property, and that money was used to finance the AB 218 claims. And that's kind of why you're seeing the big difference between the 2 years with regards to the revenues and expenditures. On the next slide here, it's entitled the 5-Year Financial History with Current Year, but this one is specifically for special education. Once again, you'll notice that it goes back to 21-22, but where we're kind of focusing for tonight's purposes are on the far right-hand side. So this is just for special education. So we are projecting revenues of special education of about $2.3 million. However, the expenses related to special education are projected at about $7.9 million. So as you'll notice that the expenditures greatly exceed the revenue that we receive for special education. So what the district has to do is it has to do a contribution from the unrestricted side of the general fund to special education to make up that difference. So in that far right-hand column, what you're seeing is we're projecting that we're going to have to contribute about $5.6 million from the unrestricted side of the general fund to special education, just to kind of fill that gap from the revenues and the expenditures. On this next slide here, it's entitled the 26-27 Budget Assumptions. On this slide here, we're just looking at the unrestricted revenue budget assumptions. So what we start off with is the 25-26 estimated actual revenue for this year. So we're estimating revenue at about $28.4 million. Then we're adding in the property tax increases / EPA of about $1.3 million. So for the unrestricted revenue, we're expecting to see it increase by about $1.3 million. So at the bottom right-hand side of that slide, you'll notice that for 26-27, we're projecting our unrestricted reserves to come in at about $29.7 million. The next slide is entitled 26-27 Budget Assumptions, but on here, we're basically focusing on the unrestricted expenditure budget drivers. Basically, we're focusing on cost increases. So you'll notice on the right-hand side there the respective amounts, but I'll just kind of go ahead and read down the various categories on the left-hand side. So we've included step and column increases of about $146,000, health and welfare benefit increases of about $433,000, stirs and PERS and other benefit increases of about $195,000. A new one which we have now and will have for the next 10 years essentially is the judgment obligation bonds debt service. So we've included that. So for the first year, it's about $182,000. Services and other operating expenses, $129,000. And right below that, you'll see an item for 26-27 salary increases. But once again, there's no dollar amount associated with that because that still has yet to be determined. But for the ones that we can project, we're looking at our cost increases are going to be a little bit more than $1 million for the 26-27 budget. On the following slide, also entitled Budget Assumptions, this one we're focusing on the 26-27 unrestricted budget reductions. So basically what we're seeing here are expenses that we had this year paid from the unrestricted budget that we should not have in 26-27. And so that's why we are deducting them. So the first one that we all are aware of are in 26-27, we're backing out the AB 218 claims that we had this year, but will not have next year, so we're reducing that. And we have this additional one-time legal services expense of $550,000 that we had this year, but should not have next year. So we're backing those out of the 26-27 budget to the tune of about $4.5 million. And the next slide, which is titled Unrestricted Expenditure Budget Assumptions, basically kind of pulls together the last couple slides. So with regards to expenditures. So we're starting off with our this year's 25-26 second interim expenditures of about $31 million. We are including next year's budget drivers, i.e. cost increases of about $1 million, but we are reducing those one-time significant unrestricted costs that we just went over, i.e. the legal claim, the AB 218 claims and the related some other legal fees. And we're seeing a total change in expenditures of about $3.4 million reduction. So next year, our unrestricted general fund expenditures should be reduced by about $3.4 million, which would bring us in at about $27.6 million on the unrestricted side of the general budget. On this slide here, this one's entitled Projected Unrestricted Fund Balance and Reserves. So this slide here kind of pulls together the last 4 or 5 slides that we looked at. So we're starting off with at the top right, the 25-26 estimated actuals ending balance. So we're projecting on the unrestricted side of the budget that we're projecting an ending fund balance of about $3.6 million. And then right below there, you'll see there's a 26-27 revenue, then we have our 26-27 expenditures, and then those two net out. And so we're expecting an increase to the unrestricted fund balance of about $2.1 million, which equates to a budget reserve of about 13.7% for 26-27. And the last slide here is the multi-year projection, which is an extremely important exercise that we must do. Once again, it makes us project our revenues out and also project our expenditures so we can see where the district is heading financially with the best information we have at the time. I.e., we know nobody can predict the future, so these numbers will change, but nonetheless, it's an important exercise that all school districts must do to see where they are headed financially. So the first column there is the estimated actuals for 25-26. At the bottom of that column there, you'll notice that we're projecting a reserve at about 7.7%. For 26-27, we're projecting a reserve of about 13.7%. 27-28, 19.19%, and 28-29, about 21.78%. In these projections, I've included property tax increases of 4% for each year. I've also included step and column increases, other relative increases due to COLA, and the related health insurance costs of about $433,000 for each year, since for the past year our increases have been in that range. So I've incorporated the costs that we can, kind of increase with some sort of relative certainty, and also the expenditures as well, too, so we can try and get the best read, the best projections possible. And so with that, as you can see, we're way above the 3% required for reserves. However, I do want to mention to the board, as I have in the past, that in a recent school services notice they sent out, they said for 24-25, the average fund balance of all school districts, so they're picking out both basic aid and LCFF, the average school district balance came in at about 22%. So for this year, for example, for 25-26, if we end the year with 7.71, that is still well above the 3% required, but still, once again, for comparison purposes, the average school district's reserve percentage for all unified, for all districts, is about 22%. So that kind of gives you a gauge as to where we are in relation to the average school district. And last but not least, I do want to highlight that, as you can notice, these numbers from 26-27 through 28-29 are growing. But once again, those numbers do not include any salary increases. Once that happens, these numbers will change due to the fact that our costs will increase, and most likely that will be reflected with a reduced reserve percentage. So with that concludes my presentation. So I'd like to ask the board if you have any questions.
Do you do any analysis in terms of, in my business, we obviously run like a scenario where you have like worst case, likely case, best case. So all these numbers kind of assume a 4% increase.
Correct.
Economy's not super great, right? We're looking like things could be backsliding a little bit. Is there scenario planning where you look at a 1% increase, what that does to us? 2%.
From the district side, I do different variations of what the respective increases will do to our reserve percentage. But to kind of answer your point, what districts most likely do is when they're doing this planning, they're always watching their ending fund balance, their reserve percentage, because kind of that's their savings account that they can use if something happens that's significant, that's unanticipated, which is the reason why most districts have a reserve percentage of about 22%, because that gives them a significant cushion to deal with uncertainties, i.e., the economy or one significant cost event.
What's our 3% number? Like, what's our bottom?
So 3% for us is about 1.2 million.
Okay, I'm just curious. Thank you.
Yes.
Great. You guys, any questions, comments? So I guess the biggie is we'll wait to start negotiating, and that's the big driver here for
correct
for any balances moving forward. But it looks like things, I think the reduction in enrollment has helped us reduce staff, which has helped us with our bottom line. That's the underlying theme here is that because tax revenues have not really all changed much from what we were projecting.
Yeah, I think at the beginning of the year we were projecting 5%, but then after hearing some information, talking with the county office and also the tax assessor, that's when we brought 26-27 and 27-28 down from 5 to 4%, and that drop per year is about $300,000.
Yeah.
But once again, those are projections. If it goes up, fantastic. We can easily, change that number to reflect better information.
Yeah, and I think as Jeanette was asking, worst case scenario, the economy crashes, people start selling their houses for a lot less than their current assessed value, and the revenue projections are completely skewed. And that is a good argument for having a healthy reserve.
Correct. Yes, it is.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. Thanks, Jason.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, we will move to, where am I here?
Aye.
I'm an I, Measure U. So, any comment on Measure U? Public comment? No public comment on Measure U. We are being asked to approve change order number 1 for the Aliso Elementary TKK classroom. And it's the result of elevated groundwater encountered during preliminary excavation. The initial change order amount was projected to be $485,000 change. And it looks like it's been reduced to $436,771.94. Can I get a motion here?
I'll move to approve the change order.
I'll second.
Okay, so a little background. Do you mind if I, a little background? Okay. So, we had this discussion early on with our designer, and apparently the borings were taken earlier than this. They were taken last year, I think, in the summer, and then with the heavy rains in the fall this year, recharged the groundwater rised up. So I think the options here were, unfortunately, the contract was issued. One of the considerations that I put forth with Diana was that we maybe just delay the project and let the groundwater subside, but that's a big gamble. I think this is more in line with the original estimate prior to the architect negotiating a revised foundation design. So this is more in line with that ground modification estimate that he came up with, as opposed to the mat slab foundation that we settled on. It's not it's not the way you want to start a project, for sure. But I think in talking with Steve McGilvray, he's done everything he can to try to mitigate the costs, and the sanitation district worked with us and allowed us to discharge the water that was getting pumped out of the out of these dewatering wells into their system, which is potentially a huge savings for us, because we didn't have to worry about permits and discharge and water quality and all that. So it's good the community was, other agencies were willing to work with us. But anyhow, that's the background on it. I don't know if anybody, not that I'm the expert, but.
Do we have fund, it says for Measure U, so there's a buffer.
There's contingency costs.
Okay.
Yeah, there's contingency. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, move on to item J, personnel. Any public comment on item J, personnel?
Okay, so 6 items under personnel, 30 seconds per item. In item J1, we're going to focus on the employee side of this. There is one new classified hire. Any surprise that she was hired for 0.62 of an FTE, a new classified hire, hired part-time? If she does not buy into the district's health and welfare plan, will the district continue to misrepresent its costs for this part-time employee by suggesting that she's paying $19,800, like the 52% of her other colleagues that are also not paying that money? There is also one retirement, Ana Martinez. I've had the pleasure of working with Donna for many years, and she has been assigned to different school sites. Anna's wonderful presence in the workplace and her extended service to students and their families and her peers is noteworthy. May the board or superintendent please explain when I'm done with the comment, why do we not celebrate the retirement of classified employees as we do with certificated or administrators? Elected employee leadership was surprised to learn recently that the district has no intention of honoring the classified employees who retire, many of those who have given the majority, if not all, of their professional life to CUSD in the community of Carpinteria. Is that not sufficient for a token rose bush from Miss Rigby and the board? Of course, it isn't the rose bush. It is the respect that these employees have earned many times over. Have you forgotten who kept showing up when COVID hit? And we didn't know whether COVID was more like a terrible flu or more like the bubonic plague? Have you forgotten who we called essential, quote, essential workers, whose positions were so important they could not work from home and avoid the increased health risk, and who kept showing up? Have you forgotten where you were when so many classified workers reported for duty, masked, scared, and uncertain, but determined to do the right thing by our students and our families? Finally, we have 2 resignations. 2 part-time IAs. It's appropriate to wonder if these resignations would be occurring if CUSD valued its classified employees a bit more. Not just offering them special recognition when they provide many years of service to the district, but assisting them in their need to cobble together full-time employment with the district to gain consistent access to employee health care. It is unbelievable how many people we lose on that one detail right there. So 2 more SPED aides resigning. We all wonder, will this add 2 more SPED employees to the district that the district has managed to encourage out? During Ms. Haynes' imagination exercise, she started her response with, "I'd like to imagine." Mr. Schaefer followed with some of the same sentiment. For our part, union leadership would like to imagine a day when CUSD takes such good care of its employees. We are not seeing IAs resigning in the middle of the school year, but rather a professional culture where employees feel a significant degree of loyalty to the district based on the very loyalty and
Thank
good
you. Your
faith the
time is
district
up.
shows its employees. Want to imagine that with me, Mr. Schaefer? Use that imagination,
So much
Mr. Schaefer.
anger,
Thank
so
you.
much anger. It's time to sit down. We'll ask to be and approve the personnel summary. Can I get a motion to approve?
I'll motion to approve the personnel summary.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, item 2 is a public hearing on the Carpenter Unified School District's initial proposal to cause certificated local 2216 for the 26-27 school year. I will open up the hearing for any public comment. Seeing as none, I will close the hearing. Move on to item 3. We're being asked to adopt the district's initial proposal to cause certificated local 2216. Can I get a motion to approve?
I'll move to approve.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, move on to item 4. Public hearing on the district's initial proposal to cause classified local 2216. I will open the meeting, hearing. Public comment none. Close the hearing. Move on to item 5. We're being asked to adopt the district's initial proposal to cause classified local 2216. Can I get a motion?
I'll move to approve.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, move on to item 6, the 26-27 school year declaration of need for fully qualified educators, a CL 500 form. Board is being asked to approve the declaration of need for the 26-27 school year for qualified educators, which is required by the California Commission on Teacher Credentialing Department. This annual declaration of need form allows the district to anticipate employing teachers for vacant positions who are not fully credentialed, provided they meet state requirements. There is no fiscal impact, and the district is not creating new positions but filling existing vacancies. Can I get a motion to approve?
I'll move to approve.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
I guess I'm just curious, how many of those type of employees do we typically have to hire?
Not very many, a handful.
Okay.
Yeah, but we need to be prepared.
Sure.
But,
Okay.
for example, right now, we still have an opening for elementary instrumental music teacher.
Mhm, okay.
So that might be a situation where, a prospective candidate would have the state requirements, but not may be fully credentialed by September
Got it.
or
Okay.
August.
Thank you.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, future agenda items, no, nothing new. Board calendar, Monica? No, I'm not.
Are you now no more public comments on future agenda items, Mr. Schaefer?
No.
Are you overriding the Brown Act now?
No.
Regarding your question, I just want to remind the board that there's going to be school board visits on April 24.
Okay, thank you, Monica. Any board announcements? Nothing? All right, Russell Cups this weekend.
Yes, don't miss it.
Come eat tri-tip.
Mr.
All
Schaefer,
right,
I
thank
think
you.
you forgot future agenda items, Mr. Schaefer.
Meeting's
Did you
adjourned.
forget future agenda items, Mr. Schaefer?
Thank you.
Yeah? All right, thank you.
Such a better way to end the meeting.